Good day to you. My name is Maria Kądzielska-Koper, and I do hope that you're not totally fed up with the news from the war and from Ukraine and from Poland, because today we are still talking about the book The War of Our Times and about the place called Łazienkowska 14, created by Fundacja Oczami Nieba, the foundation Through Eyes of Heaven. And with me in the studio is Michał Awerczuk, one of the co-authors of the book. Michał, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
And as we were talking in the previous episode, the place itself, the cloister of Wspólnoty Jerozolimskie, so the Jerusalem communities, which is a cloister for monks and sisters, which gave the space, more than 1,000 square meters for the shelter in the basement on the church on Łazienkowska 14 in Warsaw. Is a unique space, but also unique community, because we have to mention the fact that the sisters and the monks, since the very beginning of the war, they opened their cloisters for the refugees, and not only giving the space to create the shelter on the basement, but also letting people to live in the cloisters. So the sisters, they moved from a whole from all of their rooms and left half of their rooms to the refugees. So they originally were living, all of them had a single room, but now they are living for two in one room. So the families from Ukraine can stay longer time and can live in the cloister. But it was not enough because there are so many people who need help from Ukraine, and so many go through Warsaw, that there was the necessity of creating the shelter. And right now the shelter has 40 beds, so 40 people can sleep there. But you made the interviews with the volunteers, with people who were starting and building it from the scratch, from the beginning. Could you mention to us, especially right now, Łukasz Wierzejski?
What about him?
The guy who is one of the, constructor of putting the beds all together, painting the walls.
One of the constructors.
One of them, but yeah. You describe him very beautifully in the book.
His story was amazing. That's why I started with him.
Exactly. So tell us his story, because it's a cool one. I think it's a good inspiration for young men, especially.
He's a good example of how can one be involved in a volunteering process. So how can a person of a young age, a young man, a male, of what you said, can turn his, I don't want to say nothing for
Łukasz,
but yet turn his life upside down and just focus on what's important now in his opinion. In his opinion, what was important back in 2022 was, to be fully involved in rebuilding the shelter and helping others, and that's why I started with him.
Yeah, but also on the fact that he actually totally devoted 3 months of his life, absolutely entirely.
Probably even more, but yeah.
Probably even more, yes. Almost living there, because at the very beginning people were from also the gathering Wspólnota Królowa Pokoju, were literally staying there 14 hours a day sometimes. And then going very quickly to back home, sleeping a little bit, eating, washing, and going back to the shelter too.
And many people did it like that. So I made an example from Łukasz, but he wasn't the only one. There were many people involved there.
Absolutely, and also this but element which you describe in the book as well, the fact that it's very hard to divide the actions of the volunteers from actually their faith. Because Łukasz had this very, very strong story in Medjugorje. He was a, let's say, and people with some faith, and then he went to Medjugorje on pilgrimage, and he went to the river which is next to it just to swim and to have fun on the waterfall there next to Medjugorje. And then what happened?
He started drowning.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden he almost died, almost drowned, and some strange force took him
Out of the water.
out of the water. That's how he described it, and I decided to put that in a book because I firmly believe that the Christian values of the volunteers gathered around the foundation is crucial in this volunteering process of theirs.
Absolutely, and I firmly agree with you. And what is left for us, of course, is to recommend all of you to read the War of Our Times. I hope very soon it will be published also in the English translation. But what is more important is, of course, check out the foundation Oczami Nieba Through the Eyes of Heaven, because maybe you can also support its actions, because the shelter is still open and still helping everyday Ukrainians who are coming from war. And thank you for watching.